Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It is November 15th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And really, for the most part, it's another range day. We broke out late in the afternoon um, after 1 o'clock or so, and we rallied pretty strongly. Um, what you might have done is once we broke higher, we traded up into this range, so it doesn't surprise me that when we succeeded break the breakout, it was to the upside. Um, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a um, trap down here. We had one here, I guess you could say, but it would have been nice if we'd have had a few more tests of this and then got the little failed break. And you kind of got one here across the midline, but it's not the same as getting one down here. That's generally when you'll catch these nice moves up. But once we started going higher, you should have measured this leg here and looked for that at a minimum. You see we exceeded that really by a good bit. We actually started finding some resistance at that measured move, but we continued higher. So, but that would have been my first target. And you might have even used, even though you had to go in the day before, you might have used this lower one here as well because it's still part of this move. That'd be about the only time you'd want to do that was in this first move. Generally, you can find everything in the current day's price action. I generally do not like to go into the previous day, but you see that you get a perfect measured move almost before you get a little correction, then continue higher again. So that would be about the only time I would do that. So anyway, let's back out, talk about the trades. But yeah, most everything was in the as a mid a trading range today, and this midline here, you got to be careful with those trades because um, you're going to get more failures across those midlines. So you'll notice there's one trade here. We'll talk about why I like that one. But for the most part, I skip these across those midlines because they're just not as predictable. So today was especially one of those days you had to be just really patient early on. If you come in at 7 like me, you didn't really get a good trade till almost 9 o'clock. That's 2 hours you got to sit there and just watch this thing. There's a couple of aggressive trades here that you might have considered, but for the most part, there wasn't anything happening. And then you had to wait again across here. There just wasn't. There's not many trades today. This just was a kind of a flat day and not a lot going on. So, but anyway, let's back out where you can see it a little better. Talk about the trades. This trade right here is really close to being blue. This was just after I sat down and kind of got my wits about me on the chart. You had a little channel working up right here. Let me put the other side of it on. You can see that channel working up. That's holding prices neatly. Um, this is really close to say, hey, we definitely got to close outside. So this might be your first close. But notice this one working down, and you get a close outside for here for sure. It looks like you may have one here. You definitely get one by here and then a move to a new low, and you're way away from the EMA. So this one is almost blue, but I'm still going to make it green because this is a really strong sell-off here, and it could tick up and make another move down before it goes higher. Generally, I like to wait on a little higher low, which didn't come to here, and then it's kind of right into the EMA, so I didn't like entering there, even though it would have worked. But this one is real close to being blue. If you took this one and didn't see it as aggressive, it's a little bit aggressive just because it's a pretty strong move down. But notice too, there's your first move down, and then you get a little correction, and then there's your second move down. So you basically got a measured move too. It didn't quite get a measured move, but you didn't really have this support across here real well yet. This probably would have been here at that point, and so you do get a little bit of support there, which might have led you to enter right here. I mean, you probably could give that one a green one too, but it's right into that EMA, and so I'm not crazy about it. I ended up moving this a little lower. But there's you a couple, and then notice what happens. You got this little trend line working up. You get a close outside, and we just start going sideways. And this turns out, these highs here turn out to be the midline. You can see that I had a little line in there before. Later on, it turned out to be a midline, so I put the bigger line on there. But we're just going sideways in a little tight range. And you might have considered this one. There's probably close to being enough room there to get out, but it's so tight that the only way I would say you'd enter that one would be if you could get a close, a high enough entry that you know you can get out before getting to this line right here. And really, if you use the closes, that line's a little higher. That line really should be right about there. So there's not a lot of room there. You really almost have to get a failed break like here. Again, I'll probably, you could probably give that one a green one. If there's more room in there, you could have gone short and then gone long here, but notice there's not much room to get out right there. Turns out it goes higher, but you don't know that. And then I marked this one up here as a short because this one failed on the breakout, made a double top and then turned down. So you got plenty of room between here and here now, just in case it bounces. And look, it actually did look like it was going to bounce there, but you would have been out by then. And it ends up coming all the way down here. Notice that little trend line working down. That's the first close outside, and we don't quite get a new low, but when we try to go lower again and bounce off this low line and turn, we actually went lower first and turned and went right out the other side. That's a second entry long too. There's a high there, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. It's a bounce off what's held turn prices multiple times, so I like going long there. That's where you got to get long on this stuff. The very lows or the very highs. And this turns out to be a good move. You could ride this one all the way back to the top. And at this point, you don't know exactly where the top is. I originally had it here, but notice we pushed on through that. And so later on, I moved it up. But you get a close outside, move to a new high. But that's a really neutral bar. But, this is resistance up here. And so it meets our criteria, but it's not a very good signal bar. So I made it green. I think you're better off to skip it. Wait on a lower high, which comes here, and then you get a really bearish bar. So I like that one. And it's a double test of this test, and that's all a test of this previous overnight highs. That's a pretty solid. It's pretty close to the EMA, but I still like that one. You could have let it break lower and used the limit order and probably got a little better entry. Didn't matter. It kept going down. You get your first close outside here, but look how big that bar is. You don't want to be going low below that because your stop has to go up here. So you just kind of wait. You get another big bearish bar. This might have fooled some people here. But look at that midline right through there, and price is bouncing and finding support. So I just don't think you want to go short right there. If you did, you would have gotten burned. I don't like going long there either because this midline is where you'll get more failures than anywhere. So you got to be careful getting long or short off that. Now, if it would have tried to go lower again and you got a failed second entry short, yeah, maybe. But with that's so much sideways. Look how you got a doji in there and stems on both sides. Just sit tight again. And it comes up here. Of course, you got a trend line working up here, and you get your first close outside. You try to go up higher once, you try to go higher twice, and it turns down right off that level again. There's your lower high, and that's a failed second entry long. So even though that's a neutral bar, you can go short right there, and you can see, and you want to be able to get out before you get to here because there's your midline, and you see it bounced again. Same thing here. This is kind of a repeat of this over here, but again, I think you're better off to skip it. You can't use this for a signal bar. It's too bearish. This is your signal bar, and it's too big. It's right back at the highs again. So looked like you get a close outside and a new high, but we're going sideways. So wait on that lower high, which comes right here, and then you got a lot of stems. So it's not the greatest setup. You don't have much room before the midline again. I'm willing to give that one a green one. I went back and forth over it, but I think you could give that one a green one because it is a lower high, and we just came off the high. And as long as you can get in with enough room to get out before the midline here, which seems to be holding the support, then I'm okay with that one. Otherwise, I would skip it. And then watch what happens here. We push down and we're just kind of stuck below that midline, but we're not wanting to go lower. So you can tell there's a little buying bias coming in there. And notice this new low, and you get a first entry, and then you push on up through the EMA, then you get a second entry short. It fails. So when you get a break above that bar, even though that's not a very good signal bar, it's a reversal. And look at that trend line, and it bounces. Everything's bouncing right off that trend line. You got enough room to get out. I like that one to the long side. And the reason I like this one off the midline is because you get that reversal pattern with a failed second entry short. So notice the new low, pull back, first entry right there, and then you pull back again, your second entry, it fails. And you might let it break above this one and then drop your limit order a little bit back. And you see you could have gotten filled all the way back about 3 ticks, 2 or 3 ticks into that bar, right above the trend line. Normally I would have said maybe even enter on this one, but it's too close. But notice what happens. You get a breakout and then a pullback and another bullish bar right off that trend line, and it closes above this resistance area. So that's a breakout pullback long. Normally I wouldn't say, I would say don't take it either, but it bounces right off that trend line. So go long there. And then it actually pulls back one more time and turns and goes higher. This one I'm not crazy about. It's really just another breakout pullback long from this breaking out above these last few highs here. I'm not crazy about it. I marked it, but I'm not crazy about it. And I wouldn't take anything else here. If you didn't get in down here, you got to skip these. And you would have had a runner off of this one. You probably wouldn't have this one here, but you probably would have had a runner here. And you could have ridden this all the way up into the close, or at least until you got a break outside this channel. But if you'd have rode that all the way up just prior to the close, you'd got out near the high. So yeah, not a lot of trades today, not a lot going on. This is a pretty flat. This is a channel. It's really a flat channel, and it's not very big. It's only about 6 points. And it's just hard to make. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't make some money, but it's hard to make money in a 6-point trading range. You just don't get a lot of opportunities, and you got to be really careful entering off the midline. You'll get more failures that way, off that midline than anywhere. So you got to be real careful with that one. But yeah, not much else we can talk about today. It's just a slow, kind of methodical day. We're kind of consolidating some of the move that we had last week. It's impressive that the market's still holding those gains. We're back up near, heading towards 2,200 again. So it's pretty impressive considering we were below 2,000, 200 points lower just a week or so ago. But anyway, no sense in beating around the bush. I'm going to wrap it up and get this uploaded. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. But this is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.